Yes, Reds, we're back in the building. We're all together. Reds alert. It feels good, but we've expanded. G. James, I don't need to introduce you two. People know who you are already. We're going to introduce the new face, and I feel like always going to be a competition for the looks. You know, like we've got like the face.
Can I just say something? I'm a bit upset that you're not including me and James in the looks department, but it's fine. It's cool. JJ, you can have that.
Do you know what it is? It's Marmite. No. It's like some people are going to think you're out of this world, but some people it's an acquired taste. You know what I mean? And they know James's history and his little bit of his past, so that kind of affects him. So I'm only joking, James. Just a joke. Oh, I'm introducing some new faces. JJ from the Jerry James Show. How are we doing? Nice to have you on board on Club Zone.
Great to be part of Club Zone, guys. Nice to obviously be part of the big family. Came in for, I mean, a transfer fee that's sizable, like a big certain someone. So there's big expectations. But yeah, happy to be a part, obviously, of Club Zone. Massive, obviously, fans of what you guys have been doing. So it's just an honor, and happy to obviously kick off the season and get things started, man.
Oh, yes. JJ knows what he's doing. The little segue there talking about transfer fees. I think you might know what we're going to be talking about today. So everyone knows there's been a little signing. I call him Darwin Núñez. He's got big boots to fill, though, because number 27, some of you might say he's a GOAT. Some of you might say he's legend. I called him Lord Divock Origi, but Darwin Núñez is in, G. 85 million smackaroons. Now, some of that in installments, depending on success, but let's just get your opinion on it so far. Do you think that's a banging transfer, or are you still the jury out for you?
It's like in the middle of banging and the jury's still out, to be honest, just because, you know, he's still young. We haven't seen enough of him just yet. But with what we have seen, you're almost kind of in that patch of, oh, he is a kind of a bit of a banger. So he's in that middle kind of area.
James the Brain, middle area for G. He's not sure. He's keeping it PC for now. We know what he's like in the group chat. He's going to bring that heat later on. But James the Brain, Darwin Núñez, do you think the world record fee or Liverpool record fee, do you think that's disguised Mane going out the door? We're kind of not thinking about Mane. We're just thinking, oh, someone nice, someone new, someone shiny. It's like that new toy in the toolbox kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think the expectation of him will be quite high, but I also think you've got to give him time to bed in. Like we've seen what he can do against us in the Champions League, so I think he'll hit the ground running. But it's all about him easing him into the squad and not expecting a massive amount from him just because he's got a high price tag. You know, if I saw something this morning that apparently Manchester United was supposed to have a meeting with Benfica in April, and apparently the person they were supposed to meet got food poisoning, and like the meeting never happened, and Liverpool got in there, so United are fuming.
JJ, is this like a point in this one? Is it more sweet just because United wanted him, just because they were trying to pull the carpet from under our feet? Is this a little bit sweeter because now we've got that kind of pulling power? We're the big dogs in the house, so we should be trying to attract these big names and big transfer fees.
I mean, 100%. I think obviously getting one over on United is always great. I mean, it's always great considering obviously the way we've obviously grown up. We've always been in their shadow. I mean, we've always been level on thereabouts on Premier League titles and just domestic success. But our generation, we've always just been that little brother. And as of this season, we are now the top dogs. We are worth more than them. We have more pulling power. Players that want to go over there, and this is the first season that we're seeing that we are the top dogs. We're the head honcho. We're the man in charge. So 100%.
I feel like I need that sound effect, boy, like you know, like DMX. Dogs in the we need that DMX thing. We are the top dogs, though, G. But speaking of top dogs, there's someone else who's in the same kennel as us. Manchester City. They had to go, didn't they, and get the sought after Erling Haaland for cheaper, which I don't know how that's been done. There's some definitely financial fair play involved in this one, but we don't know the ins and outs. But Haaland going to City, that's a big statement from them. But do you think we've kind of gone for Núñez just to kind of dampen the spirits on the Haaland signing?
I wouldn't even say dampen. I think with someone like Haaland, remember he's a global superstar. Do you know what I mean? He's destined supposedly for like great things, as we've seen. So with someone like Nunes coming in for us, I think it's just more, if Haaland didn't cost or wasn't the player that he was, if we got in then Nunes, I think people will be looking at us thinking, yo, maybe Liverpool are, maybe that was a better signing than a Haaland. Obviously, Haaland being Haaland, it takes it up 10 notches straight away just because he's Haaland. Do you get what I mean? But who's to say Nunes doesn't outscore, Haaland this season?
And this is what I want to touch on, Jay. Nice little lean into this one because we're going into Nunes versus Haaland. Now, what I want to do, I want to talk about Nunes versus Haaland. So what they can offer both teams, I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to say, James, I think Nunes is going to have a bigger impact at Liverpool than Haaland will have at Man City. So let that one soak in. James, do you think next season, let's just talk about goals, Haaland or Nunes, more goals in the Premier League?
I'm going to say Haaland, purely because we know what he's capable of on the big stage. One thing I do want to ask you three, though, do you think there is more pressure on Manchester City signing Haaland than us signing Nunes? Because we know their history of spending the big bucks and it not always paying off. Could this be another case of spending the money and it not working out?
I said this before, right? Man City got away with it last year with Jack Grealish just because Romelu Lukaku was so bad. Jack Grealish last season had a poor season, but no one's talking about that because Lukaku went one game with 2 touches, and I'll keep saying that. I'm going to remind everybody that in a 90-minute game, Lukaku had 2 touches. So, JJ, do you think what James is saying is quite true, that there's a little bit more pressure on Man City because of Grealish, now Haaland coming in? They're going to have to see some return for the money they're spending.
I think the interesting thing about Man City in general is that City are a club that had Aguero, didn't play him, still got 100 points. Had Silva, Foden on the bench, didn't play him, still got 100 points. So all things being considered, they're probably on course to get around the 90-point mark again because they haven't really lost anyone and they're gaining a striker. Now, Haaland, of course, there's pressure because, and there might be individual pressure like we had with Jack Grealish.
Yeah.
But I don't think Jack Grealish only got away with it because Lukaku was bad. I think it's because City are just really good.
It's true, isn't it? Because if City didn't succeed, Grealish would have been talked about a lot more.
And what you'll hear is that if Haaland goes in the Premier League, but only scored but let's say in the Premier League only scores 10 goals, but they win the league again, that I'm telling you now, that will go under the radar. Will go under the radar. I think with Haaland, they've signed him to compete in the Champions League. I think it gives them another dimension going forward. They can go a bit more direct. They did it against Atletico Madrid when they tried to go a bit more direct, and it did help. It did work out a bit, but they did lack that kind of physical presence up front. I think in the Premier League, they didn't have a striker, and they still won. So I don't think it changes the way they play. It's not as if they were, challenging for top 4 and they're getting in a Haaland to kind of take them to the next level. In a similar fashion to what we did with Virgil van Dijk or when we got Alisson, that took us to that next level. This player is another addition to a side that ultimately I do hate them, but they're great. They're great on
the top class, isn't it?
I don't feel. I think there's pressure on the individual player. I don't think that puts pressure on City as a club, and I think they're not. They don't care. They don't care whether they spend 100 or 200 million. They're not accountants like we've become as Liverpool fans. They've got the.
How embarrassing is that though? That we are accountants. We're literally accountants. Like Man City and those in the club. It's like when you go out in the club and Man City and those are just spraying it everywhere, and then you've got that one friend who's like sneaks off and buys his own drinks and doesn't get the rounds in. That's us. Man City are the ones who are like, yo, bring the Ciroc out, bring out the Dom Perignon, bring it all out. And we're like, yeah, I'm just going to go to the toilet and come back with like your own shots and stuff. That's definitely Liverpool. But G, I like what JJ's saying in terms of Dave said, you like that analogy then, G, didn't you? Like
It's usually me who comes up with these silly analogies. You lot are so funny.
I like what JJ's saying in the sense that Haaland's a goal scorer, but he's not necessarily coming to Man City to add goals in the Premier League. It's these crucial moments, like he said, Champions League. Now, we look at Man City and they get goals from everywhere. I think Haaland's goal return will probably drop. If we look at the stats from when they started the career, we've got Haaland, 93 goals, and Núñez, 52 goals. Now, Haaland's had a few more games, but that shows Haaland's a goal scorer. But I think Liverpool have bought Núñez to score goals from a number 9 position, whereas Haaland has come in to win trophies. So could you see potentially Núñez outscoring Haaland in the Premier League?
Maybe I can kind of see it, but it's JJ kind of just summed it all up. To be honest, you got to realize this is a team who've gone back to back with no striker. They've now got in the next best striker. A three-peat is in their minds. To be honest with you, if you get what I'm trying to say, they're not here for. They don't care if how many points they get. They're here to literally, as you said, win the Champions League and more. Just get over the line in them Real Madrid games. Do you know what I mean? Those kind of games, Atletico Madrid, as JJ said, like those games are the kind of games that he's there for. So I don't even think they'll care if Haaland doesn't score that many goals, because if they win the Premier League, who cares? Champions League, who cares?
Exactly. That Champions League, James, if Man City do not get that Champions League after spending so much money, do you think a Premier League will be satisfying enough for them? And do you think Liverpool could potentially capitalize on Man City looking at the Champions League and trying to get over the line in that competition?
Yeah, I think I was going to ask the similar sort of question. I was going to say to you, if City don't win the Champions League with Haaland there, does that seem as a failure? And, you know, if Man City can't win the Champions League with Erling Haaland, then they'll never win it. I think Erling Haaland is their best chance, and I think if they don't win the Champions League, they're not really going to be asked about the Premier League, because they're just going to be like, well, it's just another trophy, isn't it? You know, I think like JJ said, the reason that Haaland has come in is to win them the Champions League, and if they don't do it, then it's a massive, massive failure.
If they don't do it, then I want to hear everyone saying Jurgen Klopp is better than Pep Guardiola. I want to hear it. It's going to happen at some point. But
sorry to interject.
Go.
I think, James, what's quite interesting is that I speak to a lot of Man City fans, especially in the YouTube space and stuff. And one thing that's quite apparent with them is that unlike us, unlike United, unlike Real Madrid, unlike PSG that are quite different, Man City fans don't have a connection with the Champions League. And when I've spoken to them, they've only said that they wanted to win the Champions League just to shut everyone else up. But they're not really asked about it. G's really correct with saying they want the three-peat. They want to do back to back to back to back, and they want to dominate the league because of where they were. They want to really catch up to United. That's in their minds. They're not looking at the Champions League.
No.
The fan base isn't at least looking at the Champions League as this is our kind of golden hope and golden. They're not looking at that.
I never thought about it that way. It's mad. Do you think then it's a media agenda that's pumping out this Guardiola needs a Champions League?
I think that's a worthy agenda, because I do think that Man City as a club, as an institution, the Shades, I think they want to win the Champions League. Yeah. They want to be renowned as the best club in the world, in Europe, period. But the fans haven't got that connection like we do with the Champions League. No. So it's only when they lost to Chelsea, not this final, but the last final before that, where they felt a bit aggrieved. But that was because it was a British team, an English team that beat them. I think when you speak to a lot of them, I think you will come to realize they don't really care about it. They're not asked about it. We as fans, as Liverpool fans, we've got such a deep-rooted connection that winning the Champions League after a poor season can turn a bad season into a good season. Just Real Madrid have done the same. Ronaldo only won 2 leagues.
That's it. Yeah, I've been saying
this. So mad. That's so mad.
He only won 2 leagues whilst he was at Real Madrid. Yet the Champions League's where all the money was at. And I think that's the important thing. I think that's something to remember from a City fan perspective. I think as an establishment, 100%, they want to be the dominant force. The fans, I mean, of course, will be great if they win it. I think they're more focused on the Premier League.
Yeah. Gee, I love that, where it's the fans' perspective, because we're just getting the media side. We're getting Liverpool fan perspective on a Man City issue. Do you think then, as this Premier League and Champions League debate goes on, do you think you need to be a more rounded team, a more team with more depth to go back to back in the Premier League? Is that the competition that everyone should be aiming for, a league title rather than a cup competition? Because everyone knows on anybody's day, you can get knocked out of the Champions League. Look what happened to Man City against Real Madrid. Look what's happened in the past when Liverpool won in Istanbul. So do you think the Premier League should be Liverpool's main focus this season, so Man City don't get that reputation of invincible?
I want the Premier League next season. I don't know about anybody else, but I want the Premier League next season because, as JJ said, like, we have that affinity, but we only have that affinity because we've won it so many times. If we had never won it, a bit like Arsenal, they don't have an affinity to. Why would you have an affinity to something you've never won before? Do you get what I mean? It's hard to really get in love with something that you've never won. So I think what JJ was saying was right. Like, Man City are going to be looking at that three-peat, because to do a three-peat, that's crazy. That is crazy. And I didn't know that Ronaldo had only won 2 league titles. But look how revered his time at... Obviously, he is one of the best players of all time, of course. So regardless. But look how revered he is over there. And he's won more Champions Leagues than he has league titles, I'm guessing, at Real Madrid. And that's crazy to think. I think next season we need to be going for that Premier League. There's no way that we are letting Manchester City go for 3 titles. That can't happen. They can have the Champions League. Have it.
Do you think, this era under Klopp is the pure definition of what we're saying? We've pushed Man City so close. We've come within 1 point on 2 occasions. The season where we was miles behind, that was down to injuries. I think we'll all agree with that. But is that the definition of you need to get the silverware? Because nobody's going to remember this Liverpool squad as being champions, as being winners for the Premier League, even though we're on a par with Man City year in, year out. Man City are the team that are going to get the accolades in the history books.
You know my thoughts. I've said it like in the group before in regards to this whole what we perceive to be success here at the football club. And it's like, unfortunately, we're up against Manchester City. Obviously, there's nothing we can do about that. That's just the team that we have to beat. But ultimately, as you said, if we're not winning, it doesn't matter in 50. We will remember them. I'll remember Virgil, Salah, Mane, the whole 9. I'll remember all of them. But
hell, I remember Kyriakos. I don't need to remember Virgil. I remember Kyriakos and Pellegrini.
But Jimmy Traore. We can remember all of the names. But the reality is, no one cares. If I'm like, and that's the brutal truth about it. Nobody's going to care about who came second. No one's going to remember that we were 1 point off twice. No one's going to remember that we had a poor season due to injuries. All they're going to see is Liverpool finished 3rd after winning the league. You know, it's all about the trophies, unfortunately, man. Exactly. And if we're not going to get them, what else can you do? What can you say?
It's like we look at Shankly as this great. We look at Paisley as this great because they backed up building a community with trophies.
Yeah.
Klopp's built that community now. Yes, we've won trophies, but I feel like league titles kind of cement that. Champions Leagues are good. European Cups are nice. You can talk about as a legend if you get one of those. But I think cementing yourself as the greatest manager in Liverpool's history, you need those kind of league titles. But James the Brain, talking about legends, is Núñez going to score more than Mo? That's the question. First question is Mo going to stay? Is Mo going to be here this season? Never mind score as many goals. The more this saga rolls on, James, of the contract talks and Mo Salah's agent, who we know does not have a good relationship with the club, could you see us potentially parting ways with Salah and Mane in the same window? And would you be aggrieved if that happened, or would you be open to it? Tough question, I know. It's a thing to this one.
I'd rather get a transfer fee for Salah than lose him on a free. Because at least if we get a transfer fee for him, at least we can invest in somebody else. Whereas if we lose him on a free, then, you know, we're a bit screwed. But I think I think now that Sadio's going, I'm wondering if the club might throw a little bit more money at him and try and sweet talk him. But Salah says he wants to stay. He doesn't want to leave. But it's everybody's going, oh, the club needs to give him what he wants. Well, actually, Salah and his agent probably need to go to the club and say, actually, we won't demand this much. We'll meet you halfway. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is there's so much talk that it's always down to the club when actually the club, Salah and his agent are probably all as bad as each other and playing tit for tat. When in fact they could all just turn around and go, okay, we won't give you what you want, but we'll give you this, and this instead of this. And I think that's the big issue.
If he stays, who's scoring more goals?
Nunes, because I don't think there'll be as much pressure on Salah to deliver for us now that we've got Nunes.
Staying on that subject for one question, JJ, do you think that because of Mo's form, and we all admit it, Mo has been way below par since coming back from AFCON. He might have got the goals, he might have scored a few, but he's not been the same Mo. His touch has been off, his decision-making has been off. Do you think that's played a big part in these negotiations? With Mane leaving, do you think the club would have gone, do you know what, Mo, we'll kind of meet you really close to what you want? Or do you think it's given the club a bit more of a leg to stand on, saying, do you know what, there's life after you, Mo, so you better come down to us if you want to stay?
I think, 100%, I think his bargaining positions dramatically dropped. I think this conversation happening in December is completely different to the end of the season. I think there's three things you can look at: is Diaz coming in, Mane not performing well, and also the signing of Nunes. And I think you can see there's been a shift away from the out to in runs from Salah. And I was speaking about on my channel earlier as well, where what you saw is Salah actually was hugging the touchline much more than he's actually done in his Liverpool career. And he's allowing that right-hand channel for Trent to come in. And if you've noticed, Trent doesn't make overlapping runs.
No.
It's Henderson that makes the occasional
run. This is it. Endo's been going on the right.
You've got to go again and cover Trent also. But you can't rely on someone like Henderson as well to be doing that and also cover the midfield as well. So what you're seeing is Salah is staying out wide now to draw out that back line, and it's allowing there to be space for a Trent or for a Hendo to put those balls into the box where Mane or Jota or whoever was getting on the end of them. So there's tactically been a shift away from Salah. And I think Salah hasn't helped himself because he goes and signs a deal in December when we were trying to negotiate with him. He probably gets more than what he wants now.
Exactly,
and I think it's important to notice as well is that it's the basic that he wants up because our system's our wage system's based on an incentive kind of policy. So because of how successful we've been and the amount of points we've racked up, and we've got to the last stages of cup competitions, and we've went toe to toe with City for the Premier League on multiple occasions. Bar obviously last season with all the injuries, he's been on around 350 anyway. So
it's mad with these incentives.
So what he's wanting is actually I want to be on around 500 with my incentives, and I think that's where the club are saying actually no, because you're not double worth more than
Virgil van Dijk. That's it. You're not double VVD.
Or Alisson, you're not. And yeah, of course, your goals matter and are important. But I will ask all three of you guys: how did you feel when Coutinho left? I was devastated. I thought that was us finished. I thought we were going backwards. My whole narrative was, oh my God, Liverpool have got rid of one of their best players again. He's our talisman. Now look, now we're going to be finished. Yeah. And look at us. We just changed the way we play.
That's it.
And
exactly.
And Nunes, for me, emphasizes that there's going to be a change in style, which means that we can hopefully get better because ultimately, Mane, Salah, Firmino, they've got us to this point, but it hasn't been enough, unfortunately. It's got us 98 points and we still lost the league. So
we're all looking at Mo Salah being, if he leaves, that done. We've got Diaz. Diaz was on fire last season. He's only going to get better when he speaks English. Like, imagine you go into a different country, you don't know the tactics, you don't understand what they're saying. He knows now, and he's going to understand a little bit more. He's going to be a baller this season. Nunes, I think, is going to hit the ground running. But I like this one here, G, from Jared, saying if we sell Salah or worse, let him go for free. and don't replace him with Nkunku, profile type player, 2 goal scoring midfielders, then we'll be in trouble. What he's trying to say, I feel like, and another comment that came in was, if we don't get the money for Mo now, are we actually going to put up the cash in summer for Jude Bellingham? Yes, we'll have the wages freed up, but are we going to actually invest? Because we probably will need 2 players. If Salah goes, we need to replace him at winger, and we still need that midfield type player. Would you bring someone in this summer just to fill that gap and then look at a Salah replacement? Or would you wait for a Bellingham if we had to wait?
I don't like the idea of waiting for one player because there's only like a real small number of players in world football that I would actually wait for. And that's like Mbappe, Messi, Ronaldo. Bellingham isn't someone that I feel that
I can't believe G's just said he'd wait for a United player, you know.
No, taking out my allegiances to Liverpool. I mean, Ronaldo is Ronaldo. He's like a 1 in a million type of player. But like the thing with Bellingham is going to be a fantastic player regardless. I have no doubt about that. My issue is that when you leave someone to, like, if you leave someone for a whole season, that's a long time. Unless you've already pre-agreed, you know, before that, there's a long time for someone to think about anything can happen to us this season. There's no guarantee that we're going to even do well. So then what does that mean? You know, what does that look like in the summer? Does Jude then look at us and think, oh yeah, Liverpool are a fantastic prospect. They're moving in the right direction. If we're not moving in the right direction, is there going to be another prospect out there who's looking, you know, at Bellingham and saying maybe, I don't know, Chelsea, PSG, Roman, whoever it might be. And I just think waiting for Bellingham, why are you waiting? You know you need this player more or less now.
Yeah, so that's what I don't get. Why wait for if you know you're getting a player?
Yeah.
Why wait? Because are you relying on winning something this season to get the money? Like, money's not going to change that much.
Exactly.
The only thing that could happen is Bellingham's transfer fee could go up.
Yeah, and that's what I'm scared about, is that we're going to end up paying more for Bellingham. And as you guys have just said there, if Salah then leaves on a free, I'm sorry, but I don't feel like we've got anyone on that right-hand side who I would say can come in there and replace Salah, you know, more or less straight from the off. So then we're going to need to get someone of world-class quality to kind of fill that gap. It can't be someone who's just coming through again and we, you know, bed them. It can't be that. It has to be not like for like, but it has to be more or less similar. And can someone name me a player who's even similar to Mo Salah?
And we're risking. We're betting on having a good season.
Yes.
If we have a poor season, why would Bellingham want to come to us anyway? Where you guarantee no, if you go in for an Nkunku, a Bellingham, someone like that right now, they're going to come to Liverpool.
100%.
Because we're on the top of our game. We're probably the best club in the world based on results. And yes, the trophies went against us, but we were in every single game in the season. No club's ever done that. So right now is when we've got the pulling power. Next season, we might not have that pulling power. Man City might run away with the league. We might finish third and get an FA Cup and get to a Champions League final. You don't know what's going to happen. We need to act now, and I feel like now is the time to get him. But talking about midfielders, I've got a little game for you three to play. It's called Start, Bench, Sell. James, you're loving these little things, aren't you, James? Come on, admit it, you're loving it. So, with Start, Bench, Sell, what we've got now is I've got 3 players. Curtis Jones, Naby Keita, and Harvey Elliott. What I want to do, I'm going to go through you all. And he knows what I've done. JJ knows. I'm going to ask you all now, 1 to start, 1 to bench, 1 to sell. And just be honest. That's all we ask on this show, is that you're honest. James, it's been a while since you spoke. Earlier this season, everyone, James the Brain said these words. This is a quote. I would rip the shirt off Naby.
I knew that was coming. As soon as I saw them 3, I knew that was coming.
Let's see if he's changed his mind. James the Brain, start, bench, sell. Who are you going for? Jones, Keita, Elliott.
Start Curtis Jones, bench Harvey Elliott, sell Naby Keita.
Okay, interesting one. JJ, let's see what you've got, and then we'll talk about it in a second.
So many if buts and all right. What system are we playing? How are we playing?
Here we go.
Is that dropping the systems in? I don't know. That's what we can talk about in a little minute. So you think about what system we might play and who would.
I think based on each player at their best and what I think they're capable of, I'd start Jones, I'd bench Elliott, and I would sell Keita also.
Okay, that's two equal. G, are you gonna throw a spanner in the works? Are you gonna add some of this horrible juice to this gumbo that all likes to talk about? You're gonna stir the pot. Come on.
I would start. You know what it is? It's my sell in my mind. It's just the sell I'm thinking of who I've got two I want to sell. So I'm just trying to think.
Oh, G's getting rid of them all. He's like, sell them all, play Hendo, happy days.
Okay. Start Elliott, bench Jones, sell Keita.
So this is cold. So now we've got three of us selling Keita already. Keita, the one player that is probably a bit more proven to maybe make something happen, which is interesting. I would go Jones start. So I agree with you two on that one. I'd go with Naby Keita bench and Harvey Elliott sell. So let's talk about it.
That was my thinking.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. So we're thinking about systems, as JJ's just said. So JJ, talking about the system you think we're going to play, do you think we're going to play with a number 10 star player next season with Nunes coming in?
100%. I think signing a Fabio Carvalho that can play in that position. Also, Bobby's inability to play a false nine as well as he has before, because obviously his legs have gone and stuff. The type of the personnel we've got with Elliott and Jones as well, I think it's a no-brainer to play with a number 10, even if you're playing a 4-3-3. I think having a number 10 in there, I think is probably going to be the way we go next season.
I think that as well. I agree with you. But, G, if we look at Klopp, you know how stubborn the man is. If there's one thing that frustrates me about Jurgen Klopp, it's how stubborn he can be. Now, we've seen this season, he's played 4 players at one point. But I feel like that's because he had his hand forced. There was nothing else he could do. Do you think Klopp is actually going to change that 3-man midfield where he's got one player that presses like a mofo, who will just chase and chase and chase? He's got Fabinho, who is the sweeper, and he's got the other one who will work his ass off to cover, to protect our wing backs. Do you think he's going to change that style of play just for one player coming into the club?
Absolutely not. I see absolutely nothing that it would even suggest that Klopp would even think about changing styles. I think even him getting in Carvalho, he only got him in to try and slot him into one of the positions that we've already got. Like, Klopp is so... I love Klopp, by the way, but he is so stubborn. He is so stubborn. And sometimes, like, you've seen it. Jones was a left winger, but he's not played left wing at all. He's a left central midfielder now. Harvey Elliott was a right winger. He's playing right central midfield now. I see another situation where maybe he will have Carvalho playing closer to the forward players, but still in that left central midfield role. A bit like Coutinho-ish, if that makes sense, kind of thing. I don't see him wanting to change it up because he might see it as we might lose something in midfield in terms of the legs and the energy if we have an actual attacking midfielder that kind of isolates him, and that means you've only got 2 midfielders in the middle. So I can't see him changing.
James, I think with JJ saying he played Jones, Elliott, and G just saying then Klopp's not going to change, I think if we do play that number 10 role, we've got players that would fit in that mold perfectly. Like we said, left winger Curtis Jones, right winger Harvey Elliott. They're kind of in no man's land right now. They're playing the game and it's like, what's my job? Do you want me to hold back? Can I express myself? Do I have to have defensive responsibilities? Have I got to create? They don't know what they're doing. If they're playing at number 10, are we going to see the best of a Curtis Jones and a Harvey Elliott?
I think so. I think we've seen it this season when like Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones have both played. They look so lost because they don't seem to have a position in the
Listen,
team.
don't dog my boy Curtis Jones. He's not looked lost. Curtis hasn't looked lost this season. Harvey's looked a little bit lost. Curtis is just...
Say that again, Ash. Say that again. With a straight face, though. Say that again.
Okay. Listen, that guy. Curtis Jones, you know what? Curtis Jones, remember the game? I think it was it Villarreal? And I said, watch this game. Curtis Jones is going to come in here. I said in the group chat, he's going to ball out. I don't care what anyone says. He's going to be player of the game. And he had a shocker. And I was just like, Curtis, like, what more can I do? But I do think, James, it is the system we're playing. We look at first seasons. Every time someone comes in, Curtis Jones comes in the FA Cup, banger against Everton, playing with so much expression from the left-hand side, not as much defensive responsibility, but allowing that freedom to be creative. Harvey Elliott, when he played at Blackburn, so much freedom, creative. He came in the first few games of this season, last pre-season, he was on fire, creating so much playing between the lines. But then Klopp kind of goes, right, you've had your fun now. I want you to fit into this type of mold. He did the same with Wijnaldum. Do you think that's what he's going to do with Carvalho as well, JJ?
I mean, if he did that, it'd be a travesty. It'd be a travesty because you don't, although you do want a player to kind of develop and grow, and if you want a player's all-round games to become a bit more complete, you don't want to take away his natural creativity, his ability to take on a man, his individuality, because ultimately that's what unlocks defenses in games that are really tight, and in games that when you suffer in games that when we face teams and they come up against a low block, you need players that can go and take on a man that can go up against the mold instead of going into the byline or cutting in every time. You know what? I'm gonna do the opposite. Make the defender think a bit differently. I think Carvalho, someone from what I've seen, has that ability to go and do that. And I think we've seen with Wijnaldum, and as you said, with Wijnaldum, with Jones, even with Keita to a certain extent, their creativity is stifled. It's stifled in the system. So G does make a point that, Klopp is really, really stubborn, really stubborn. And there's no evidence to suggest that it's going to change. The one slither of hope that I'm looking at is, you know what, the first time we've purchased a striker that is completely different to what we've had before. And the fact that he cost 80, and although we did have an Origi in the original D9, the fact that we've got a Nunes now that cost 80 million, he's going to have to play. We're not a City that can just be comfortable with, do you know what I mean, Nunes being on the bench against Real Madrid in the Champions League final. Do you know what I mean? Or it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So
we have to, breaking record fees, we have to force players in. We've got to come up with a way. If you're spending that much money, you've got to centralise that player. You've got to go, right, what's his strengths? His strengths aren't link-up play. And they know that. You look at his link-up play, that's not a strength of his game. So Liverpool must know we're not getting a Bobby Firmino here. We're not getting a Sadio Mane. We're getting somebody who's going to get us those goals. And we're going to play in a different kind of style, which I love. Liverpool invite pressure on so much just so we can create. And it frustrates me. Like, you're letting teams try to score against you in the hope that you beat them with the offside trap or Van Dijk covers and then you've got a counter-attack. And it frustrates me so much. I want to be able to play this possession game and unpick people and unlock people. I've just swapped something there. James has gone. He's just ditched us. Disgraceful, Mr. James the Brain. He's ditched us, but it doesn't matter because we're still here. Well, G, what I want to do before we go is why Naby Keita? Why sell Naby Keita? And would you actually sell Naby right now? I know there's talk about renewing his contract. Would you sell Naby if it meant we could invest somewhere else?
If it meant we could invest somewhere else, then yes. The only reason why I chose Keita is he's got the most value out of the three. In my opinion, I feel like he'd fetch the most at this current moment in time if someone tried to purchase him. That's the only thing I'm more thinking financially. But what you said earlier on about him being the most experienced, he is the most experienced. And JJ touched it there. The creativity gets started. Look at Wijnaldum. Like, I know we keep going back to Wijnaldum at Holland. It was like two different players. It didn't make any sense. And then I've seen Keita, even Keita for Guinea. When I watch him for Guinea, he is a different play. I'm telling you now, he's got like the impetus. It is the old Iniesta thing that everyone used to always say about him, but he actually plays like that when he's given the opportunity to do so. And I want to see. I've seen Curtis Jones in the youth development for years, and I used to say, nah, this guy, he's gonna be crazy when he comes into the team. Like I actually was with you, Ash. I was like, yo, Curtis Jones is gonna be one of the guys when he finally.
I rate him that much, and I know what you're saying. They've muted it. I rate Jones that much as a football. His footballing brain is so high. His footballing high IQ is just unbelievable. The way that he can adapt to different positions. He does an amazing job when he's on that field. And I think we don't give him the credit he deserves just because everybody thinks, oh, he's going to come in and score these goals. Yeah. Like everybody thinks, navigate.
DM. You have to remember he played as a DM.
Yeah.
It's true.
Someone that in the youth academy has played in the 10 position and on the left
wing,
and was given the license just create and win us games, create and get us goals. Was asked by Klopp, you know what? Because of your IQ, because you're that good of a footballer, you're going to play in the DM against Preston or whoever it was, and he's having to go dictate the game from the 6. I mean, that's a joke.
Do you think Klopp does this, JJ? Do you think Klopp does that with Curtis Jones because he knows his loyalty to the club? Anybody else, he's taking liberties a little bit. If that's somebody else, you're going, do you know what? I've not really got an affiliation to this club, and he's going to play me a left winger at DM. Like, maybe I should start looking elsewhere.
I think it is that, but I think also it's the type of personnel that Liverpool go and attract at the club. We saw Fabinho play do you know what I mean, in defence. We saw Henderson play at fullback in defence also. We saw Wijnaldum play out wide. I mean, the type of team we are, it just means that the personnel we've got mean that, do you know what I mean, they're comfortable playing in any game. So in any position, in any game that comes to them. So I think it just depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, I do agree with that one. So, first show back. Reds alert. I'm loving the way that it's gone down. James had enough of us, but it is what it is. We carry on without James the Brain. But I think what we've deciphered is this season is going to be a pivotal season. It's going to be pivotal in the sense that this is the start of this dynasty Klopp has been talking about. This is going to be the start of, do we see a transition from styles of play? Do we see a loss of our best players, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane go? Have we got a birth of a new legend in Diaz, in Nunez, potentially? I think this season is going to be interesting. But what I'm going to ask you before we go, I want a season prediction. So what I want to get is, I want a prediction for trophies. So how many trophies you think we're going to collect? And a prediction for the league as well. Do you think we're going to compete with City, top 4, that kind of prediction? So, G, I'll let you start off. What's a successful season, first of all, for Liverpool? What do you expect as a fan from Liverpool this season?
We have to win the Premier League. Anything less than that,
So if we go and get the Champions League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, Community Shield, even though that's just like, we don't even talk about that. If we get a treble and don't get the Premier League, that's not good enough for you.
It's not. Obviously, it will be fantastic to win those.
Yeah.
But it would then depend on how close we were to winning that. I'll be honest, I don't care about the Champions League anymore, man. Like, that might sound privileged, that might sound bougie, that might sound like, because
so bougie, by the way.
But at the end of the day, we are judged for a 38-game season. Not to say the Champions League is easier, but it is a far, it is. In my opinion, it's a far easier competition to navigate through than it is a 38-game season where, boy, anything can happen in game 15 that might, hinder what happens in game 32. Do you get what I mean? So, for me, if you don't win the Premier League, you better win the treble elsewhere then.
G's getting clipped for that comment saying, I don't care about the
you can clip it. You can clip it.
He's getting clipped. So, I'll come back to you in a second, G, about what you think Liverpool will win. But first, JJ, what do you expect? As a Liverpool fan, what do you want? What's a successful season?
I've got to go with G on this one. We cannot allow City to make this new moon a blue sun. And what I mean by that is when you look at it on paper, it would have been 5 Prems in 6 years.
That's mad, isn't it?
I mean, it's not. It can't be.
We talk about like league earners, the Farmers League. We talk about Bundesliga as Munich. This is what's happening in the Premier League, and nobody wants to admit it. But the fact is, Man City get over the line every single season. So does that mean we're the Farmers League now? We talk about the Premier League being the most competitive league, but Man City win every season, year in, year out.
100%. I think it's something that people throw out there and like to say we're the most competitive league. And I think it's pushed by the media. I think when you look at it in Europe, we don't dominate, and in our own league now, City dominate, and it's one team that dominates and can sign anyone who they want. And it's only really Klopp and us as a team that are really doing anything about it, because everyone else doesn't even, do you know what I mean, come close.
That's it.
So for me, I think the Premier League is the one that it has to be now. I mean, look, we've done the Carabao, we've completed the set and all of that. We have to now put a stop to City, and I think the Premier League is the one that is the vital title.
I agree with you both. I think we need that Premier League 100%. That's the one. Just focus on it. I'm not interested in the FA Cup and Carabao Cup, but we'll go into those competitions the same way we did this season. We play a team that we think can get over the line, rest a few big players. When you get further on in the competition, then you think, do you know what? If we can pick this cup up, it's nice. We'll play our players, but just focus on the Premier League. That's the main one this season. G, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Liverpool are going to get over the line and get this Premier League? Do you know what bugs me more than anything, G? The fact that, yes, we've won one Premier League, but everybody else just doesn't count it because it was in a COVID season. And it's just so frustrating that the best season of our lives is hindered by the fact that it was stop-start. We were interrupted by COVID. We couldn't have fans. So there's always going to be, you know, when you go on Wikipedia and you look at the history books and you've got honest, and there's a little star next to something. And then you scroll down to the bottom, the asterisks, and you go to it and you're like, during a part season, COVID season, you're like, damn, we can't even win. I need this full season, G. I need it.
I think, I'll just say it. I don't think we'll win the Premier League. I only think we will win. I actually think we'll win another cup competition, the FA Cup or League Cup. There's just something bubbling, and I just think it's going to keep bubbling for a little while, depending on what happens between now and the ending of the transfer window. I honestly feel that is going to be very pivotal. If we do not do what we need to do, I feel we will still stay consistently good. I just think City will just keep going like this. They're going to keep hitting that 90.
If we sign, and I know you love throwing Christian Eriksen's name around there, but if we sign this kind of midfielder who can push Thiago and Henderson for a place, do you think we will win the league? If we can just get that one not marquee, just someone who can push in midfield who offers something different.
Yeah, for me, I think get that right. There's maybe a few other places, but if you get that right for me, then I feel like we'd be in a better position. At the moment, me personally, I'm just not that confident with the squad because we're a year older. We've let go of one of our better players. We've got in a few youngsters, but they're not first team really ready. But maybe
look at it. All we've done is we've got rid of Mane, replaced him with Nunes, where Mane's proven Nunes isn't. Exactly. We've not done anything else apart from yes, Carvalho. We don't know how he's going to be. We've added Ramsey in, but he's not going to push Trent. No one's pushing Trent out of that spot. So have we really strengthened? That is the question. But I agree. I don't know yet if I agree or not. I want to hear what JJ's got to say. JJ, do you think we're going to get the Premier League, or do you think Man City are just too strong?
I mean, you guys in the group chat know that I've had my hot take. I don't think we're winning anything next season. I don't. And I know this is where you get the, do you know what I mean? The bombshell effect. But
this is where the clips come flying in, the reels, the TikToks are coming in, JJ. We're going to win nothing.
I've seen Jared, do you know what I mean, saying he's going to unsubscribe and everything. He's losing it as well. So I can see it. But for me, I think we've shown that, and it's mad to say, the way Liverpool play isn't conducive to winning the Premier League. It's not. I think in the off game coming up against a team like do you know what I mean, when you're the underdog, and I think Klopp loves the underdog status, so I think he thrives off that. And when you're the underdog, and it's, you know what, we've got to run and we've got to press and you've got to do things that you've got to work 10 times harder than the other player, then it helps. It does help, because when you're coming up against a team that are supposedly the better team, you're an awkward opponent. You're an awkward opponent. And I think since we've become the top dogs, essentially, along with City, we struggle to go and win whilst being kind of looked and viewed as the best club. And I feel that unless Klopp does something, and along with Pep Yinders does something to kind of change the way we play tactically and be a bit more inventive, and take a leaf out of Benitez's book and say, you know what, we're coming up against City this way. We're not gonna go and play the way we usually do. We're actually we're gonna put Matip. You know what? We're gonna put Matip and Fabinho in DM, and we're gonna see if De Bruyne.
That's it. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Something that Mourinho or Conte would do, which would just stifle us, and we will end up, do you know what I mean, and end up losing the game 1-0 or drawing the game when we needed to win. I think Klopp hasn't shown any evidence, I mean, since Buvac left, to show that he's going to go and do that. Without that kind of flexibility and that tactical kind of ingenuity, I can't see us doing anything different. So if City carry on doing, at bare minimum, what they've done last season and the season before and the season before, we're going to be really good. But we're only going to go and win the Premier League if City fall off. And we're going to capitalize, and we're going to be in the same position as we were last season, where it's, we hope Aston Villa just does a number in City, and maybe then we can win, as opposed to it being in our hands. And I think that's my biggest worry with Klopp. That's my biggest worry. I think, and it just alludes back to what you were talking about with Carvalho, Ash, and saying, is he going to go and play with the 10? I think that whole kind of thing is what worries me. So for me, it's mad to say, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope this gets clipped up and people throw it back in my face. And you know what? And we're all in Liverpool, do you know what I mean, in June, when there's a massive parade and we've won everything. But I'm scared, and I'm not sure. I don't think we win anything, to be fair.
I think I join you in that kind of fear. I join you in that. And it's not the fact that Man City have strengthened again this summer. It's not the fact that they've got more recruitments in. It is the fact that since Buvac left, Klopp just doesn't seem to be able to adapt to different styles and different circumstances. He's forced to do things. Everyone's saying he's adapted this season. He's been forced to play for, because there's nothing else you can do. When you're down in the Champions League final, which I thought was madness to take Henderson off, bring Kate, I just didn't see the reasoning behind it. Anyway, he's done that because you're down. What else can you do? You've no one on the bench who's a midfielder who can add any legs to midfield like Camavinga did for the opposition team. So again, he's a very good coach, but I don't think the kind of brain and adaptation is there from Klopp, because he does rely heavily on a team behind him to do that for him. So we'll see how the season goes.
Yeah,
We've got Jay saying no Premier League, no trophies. Jay said no trophies. Jay, I couldn't cope with the no trophy. I'd have to cancel Klopp's own shows for like half the season. I'm not gonna lie, with no trophies.
We'd all be out of a job, I tell you that much.
We would definitely be out of a job. But let's just see how the season goes. I'm excited to get involved. Make sure everybody, you tune in, because every Monday we're going to bring you Reds Alert. We're going to talk all things Reds, new signings, projected transfers, looking at preseason and different things like that. So please stay tuned. But Jay, it's been a pleasure to have you on board. Great show to kick things off. The first day back for Klopp Zone, new family in the building. It's been a pleasure having you, G. As always, make sure you're following these two on social media, Jerry James Show, G Keeping It G. But until next time, you'll never walk alone. Peace.